If I had a hammer, I'd a hammer in the morning, I'd a hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd a hammer out danger, I'd a hammer out a warning, I'd a hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land.
Good evening. I'm Moses Ross, and if you are watching us right now on February 4th, Tuesday, February 4th, you are watching us live. Welcome to Progressive TV on Radio on TV. Normally, we do a show where we are talking about the national political climate and landscape, and giving you, my viewers, the opportunity to be able to comment on everything from impeachment to our president and our elected officials. But I'm reminded, though, of the saying of former Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill, and that is, all politics is local. And in that vein, I plan over the next few months to do more of a focus on local politics and to kind of illustrate the importance of getting to know who your elected officials are and getting to know the issues that are important to our community. And so in light of that, I have two guests that will be joining us tonight. Clackamas County Chair Jim Bernard and Clackamas County Commissioner Ken Humbertson. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I just want to very quickly give a quick summary of our guests and their history. Jim Bernard is our chair of Clackamas County. He was elected chair in November of 2016. He has served on the commission since 2009. And he previously, you may remember, served as mayor of Milwaukee for 8 years. So he has very grounded in our local community. He was elected mayor of Milwaukee in 2001, a position he held until his election as a county commissioner. But his father was also mayor of Milwaukee in the early 60s. So you have quite the family history of serving our community. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And matter of fact, I was reading in your biography, you credit a lot of the success that you have in politics to those younger years, to that what was instilled with you by your father and your family, as far as community service.
Yeah, and my grandfather. My grandfather was a volunteer fireman in Milwaukee.
Wow.
So
very deep roots.
Yeah.
Very deep roots. Oh, and I should mention also, just 2 years ago, after 92 years in business, Jim sold a third-generation family-owned auto repair business there in Milwaukee. So congratulations on that, and that's a very long time for a business to be in one location.
It is. My grandfather started in 1925, and back in 1925 there weren't a lot of cars around, but there was a lot of farm equipment. It was a farming community, so he did a lot of farm equipment repair, tractors, plows, all those things that farmers used.
Wow. And I imagine if he were to see the progress of Milwaukee in that community now, he would be pleasantly surprised, I would like to think.
I think so. I had an opportunity to talk to my father before he passed away about my visions for Milwaukee and the future of Bernard's Garage. And I think I could say we were in alignment. For one thing, the automotive industry is a very fast-changing business to be in. While I could have probably stayed there for many years more, finding employees was the challenge. A technician was, people didn't want to get their hands dirty. And if they did, the dealerships took them pretty quick. So replacing a mechanic, and we had people who had worked there, one guy, another 6 months would have been 50 years. You know, he started out cleaning the shop. Another one was 30. The others, you know, were somewhere around 20, 25 years. So long-term employment.
Well, and isn't that ultimately what is the foundation of the middle class? The idea that you are able to have a job and it's going to be steady, and you have a consistent family wage job that a family can live on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we had, even though we were a small business, we had health insurance, we had retirement plans, we had employee, you know, mental health opportunities, and just, you know, we've had all the services that I happen to believe in strongly.
That's fantastic. You know, one thing I've always been impressed with is those companies, as an entrepreneur myself, those companies that last that long obviously are doing something right. And I'd like to think that also holds true with politicians, in the sense that you've been elected. For mayor, you were elected twice. You're running for re-election now, this year, as chair. And I'd like to think that those roots kind of helped to form your political philosophies.
Very much so. You know, I always tell people, you know, we're not experts, we're generalists. We depend a lot on the great staff we have, and that it was at the city as well as at the county. And of course, the county's a lot bigger business enterprise than a city is. But, you know, we look for talent, we look for diversity, we look for new ideas in a very rapidly changing world.
You know, and that will then, let me lead then to my other guest, Ken Humbertson. Sir, you have, I understand, you've been in office since November of 2016, but prior to that, you had a career in law enforcement, and as a school teacher, and as a firefighter, and as you served time with the Marines.
Among other things, yes.
Served time.
Now, let me, and then I was just reading in your biography, so you've also held public office as a school board member, as a mayor, as a fire board member, and also on several economic development committees prior to becoming commissioner.
Correct.
So one thing that I always make it a point to do when I have an opportunity to speak with someone, an elected official, is I always ask my first question, what motivates, or what motivated or what motivates you to want to serve your community as an elected official? Ken, I'm going to let you go first with that one.
Well, when I was 14 years old, I had John Kennedy bumper stickers on my bicycle. And I went out and I hung door knockers on neighborhood doors for the Kennedy election. And it's kind of been in my blood ever since. I'm a very strong believer and beneficiary of public service. My career was in public service, as you've alluded to, and it has given me a good living and a decent, modest retirement and health care, and I was able to take care of my family effectively because of it. And I always remember John Kennedy's speech when he became president, when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And that has been pretty much touched on most of my life. So,
you know, it always amazes me in this era right now of the election, in 2020 election coming up. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of the word, of the words of our elected officials, and how they can really resonate and how they can help guide. And you know, where have you gone, John Kennedy? One of those situations right now, I might say. But that's a powerful story. That's a powerful story that even today that still resonates with you as far as your reason for being in service.
I hope to see more people remember that it's about we and not just I.
You know, and that kind of leads to my second question. Many people know the both of you here in Clackamas County, perhaps have heard your names or seen your photos in the newspapers or in the voter pamphlets. But I want to ask, when you're meeting with one of your constituents, when you're meeting with a constituent who asks you, what do the county commissioners do and how does it affect me? What do you tell them? How would you describe the role that the county can have in their lives?
Well, I can start with that, I guess.
Sure.
Save me something.
I will do my best. I will do my best. Well, we probably hit the things that are the closest to people's lives on a daily basis. If you are driving on the streets, you know, we're the ones that fund the sheriff's department. If you end up having to go to court, we're the ones that fund the district attorney's office. If you have social services problems of some kind for yourself or your family, we're the ones that fund that. If you go to the local parks, that's one of the things that we do. So those are just a few examples of the things that touch people on a very regular basis in their daily lives. Very pragmatic, non-idealistic or ideological issues, just to name 4 off the top of my head. And I'll try to leave some for Jim here. But the other thing I kind of joke about a little bit, but there's some truth to it also. Oftentimes a politician's job is to find 2 people who can do something and put them together and make sure that the rules and the regulations are in place that will help them do what it is you want done, and then get out of the way and let them do it. As Jim said, we're not experts, we're generalists, and our best work is done when we are able to find the experts that can get the things done that we envision should be done for our community.
Yeah, so, you know, when you flush the toilet, we manage the wastewater. We make sure that it's returned to the river clean. Yeah. That's something people don't think about a lot. You know, when a town like Happy Valley expands, we're the boundary commission. So they have to come to us for permission to connect to our wastewater. Or we expand our wastewater treatment boundaries to allow that to happen. You have to have wastewater treatment in order to expand. But we also have 1,800 miles of roads. That's our biggest investment, billions of dollars here in the county. So we have to manage those roads as much as we can with little, you know, quite not enough money. But I think the best thing, I always hear people say, we pay you all these taxes. Now, I'm going to make sure I'm right. I'll look to Ken because he's the facts man. But I think for every dollar, about 18 cents of it goes to the county. Yes. 18 cents. The rest goes to school districts, all the other people we collect taxes for. So that tells you that, yeah, you probably do pay a lot of taxes, but only 18 cents of that comes to the county out of every dollar. So library services, we also have a district. Yep. We provide library services and mental health clinics, dental clinics, health clinics, housing, affordable housing, temporary housing. I mean, we could go on and on and on. All of those are expensive, challenging, and you know, as everyone will tell you right now, homelessness is a huge issue. That's right. And we have to figure out a way to address that. And no one's figured out the path yet, but we have an idea how we can get closer.
Well, you know, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that was one of the topics that I wanted to talk about today. Is when I was doing my homework before our interview, I was learning a little bit about a recent program called Veterans Village. Mm-hmm. And I was quite impressed with that concept. Mm-hmm. Can you share with me what that was about?
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. Well, actually, prior to me getting on the board, there had been some interest by other commissioners, like Commissioner Savas, on trying to do something for homeless people. Mm-hmm. they were unable to get that done. When Jim came on as chair and I came on, I think it changed the focus of the board. We had a piece of property over off of 115th Street, and we modeled this somewhat after Lane County, who had been doing something very similar to what we're doing, only ours was 100% fully permitted. We followed our own rules and regulations. And the basic principle is get people off the street and into some kind of secure housing, and then bring the social services to them and get them squared away, whether it's financially squared away or rehabilitation issues, physically or otherwise, whatever it is, help get them squared away so that you can move them from this temporary shelter into permanent, full-time housing, and get them back, if they're available for work, get them back into the work environment also.
And as of today, 19 vets have moved into permanent housing.
Wow.
And that's tremendous. You know, the thing is that people say, hey, I could use help in my house, you know, finding a home cheaper. It's really a great investment to get people off the street into housing, even supportive housing, because a jail is how much, Ken?
Jails, prisons are about $115 a day. When we have somebody that goes through the rehabilitation program that the Sheriff's Department runs, that's about, well, the state gives us about $12.06 a day. It costs about $14.24 a day. Considerably less expensive than keeping somebody locked up in prison, even for the last 6 months or a year of their time, and with a much higher success rate in terms of rehabilitation than we experience in the prison system.
Well, one thing that impressed me about the setup at the Veterans Village was the housing structures were quite modern looking, quite roomy looking, but yet portable. And obviously temporary, but yet stable and secure enough where they could confidently leave their goods. They could go to a job, they could go look for work, or they could go avail themselves of services, shower, whatever.
Yeah. You know, the thing that I didn't realize until later on is that you can't, I thought, well, we could do better than this. We could rent a hotel room for them. Get them a small apartment, but that actually does not work because they lose their benefits. You have to do something like this, the pods. If you move them into something temporarily, then they lose their benefits, their voucher opportunities to actually get a permanent housing unit.
What a catch-22.
I never heard that before. Didn't know that until I was really concerned that why would we put them in these little pods? We could move them into something better. But the fact is we didn't have the vouchers or the facilities, but this is a step to get them out of the forests and on their way to permanent housing.
You know, I just had a realization here, looking at it from the Multnomah County standpoint, you know, in their homeless issues. You know, there's been attempts to have these types of smaller camps, shelters available for the homeless, and I always kind of wondered the logic behind those types of settlements, if you will, and now I realize it's such an obvious but fixable problem. The idea that they would lose the benefits. It's counterproductive almost.
Yeah, that's only for vets, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is we don't have enough of the expensive units, houses. We miss that middle housing. And so a lot of those people who could move to the bigger houses are stuck in the middle housing. But the truth is, and Ken will tell you 100 times, we don't pay living wages. I mean, even people can't even afford a one-bedroom apartment unless they're making, I'd have to go to Ken for the facts.
Roughly 20, you got to get into the $20 an hour range, give or take. At $15 an hour, which is an objective that we're working towards throughout the state, quite frankly. It sounds good, but if you do the math, what you find is that when you divide that out and use 1/3 of your income for housing, which is what HUD recommends, that's about $725 a month. And yet a one-bedroom apartment currently is over $1,000 a month, and a two-bedroom approaches $1,400 a month. So we have a low-wage economy, predominantly in the service sector, and those are the folks that have a tendency to lose their job. They find themselves having to live in a car because they don't have enough money to pay rent. And until we address that fundamental issue of family wage jobs, this problem is still going to be with us for quite some time.
I want to get back to that topic here in a minute, but I do want to just take a moment to say that you are watching Progressive Radio on TV. I'm your host, Moses Ross. I'm here with Clackamas County Chair Jim Bernard and Clackamas County Commissioner Ken Humbertson. And we are live today on Tuesday, February 4th. This is a call-in show. And if you are watching in Clackamas County, you are very welcome to call in and ask a question pose a question to the commissioners here. The phone number here is 503-650-0198. The number there is on the screen. And I'd encourage you, you have an opportunity here to ask a question of your commissioners here in Clackamas County. If you've got a question, go ahead and give us a call, and we'll get that answered for you, or at least we'll give it a good shot. One other thing I wanted to talk about as far as expanding on the Veterans Village is I read that there is another commons, another facility that has been created that is serving as permanent supportive housing for the chronically homeless and low-income veterans. Mm-hmm. Was that a project that had been in the works prior to this, the Veterans Village, or is this in complement with that?
Well, you know, it's not our project. We're partners with Northwest Housing Alternatives. Mm-hmm. And they are the ones who move the project forward. We provide some of the services, mm-hmm. and we help fund it. If you've ever had an opportunity to look at how you build affordable housing, I mean, the layers to get through that process are massive. And you know, there's not only the state, federal, you have all these banks and all these different financial tools, state tax credits and all that in order to get a project done. And it really takes somebody like Northwest Housing, who's done a lot of it, mm-hmm. To figure out, who know the process to get it done. We do that too. But you know, it's great to have all those partners.
Well, and especially having partners that have it sounds like there is synchronicity as far as the mission. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The idea that all three are on, all the partners are on the same page here.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're progressives. Back a few years ago, when Northwest Housing was looking in Milwaukee at doing this affordable housing project, the community was against it. The city council was against it. And so this project was held up for quite a while. And you know, time is money. And so now when the need is great and you have a more progressive city council, things get done like this. Right. And this is what's happening in our county too.
And that leads to what you were talking about earlier, Ken, I think prior to our show, and that's the collaboration, the idea that now that the commission is all on the same page, that the commission is working collaboratively.
Yes.
Is this just a byproduct of it, what we're talking about here with the village?
I would say it's a piece of it because it's not the only project. You know, you have the Veterans Village and the Clayton Moore Commons here in Oregon City, which is specifically addressing veterans and providing them assistance. But over in Milwaukee, where we have 200 units of low-income housing, there'll be a complete rehabilitation of those 200 units and 400 more added to house a total of 600 units there. Over off of Audie Road, there's 214 units that are currently under construction that will be for supported housing. When we get those projects done up on Holcomb Road in Oregon City, where we have some other low-income housing that goes, I mean, this is housing that goes back 80 years, we'll be doing the same thing there. So we're working very steadily on our county goals of increasing the housing stock available for low-income citizens in our county. But that is going to only address one aspect of the housing crisis, if you will. In the final analysis, I cannot tax you enough to pay for housing everybody, nor should I. That's not fair to you as a citizen, and I mean that to all the citizens that are watching this. To really get most of this problem actually solved in the long run, it's going to take family wage jobs. I don't care whether you're progressive or conservative, liberal, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I would be willing to bet you that on both sides of that aisle, everybody would say the same thing. We want people to be self-reliant. And we want them to be able to take care of themselves and their family. And that takes a living wage job. It's really that basic. So everything that we can do to facilitate that occurring is one major step forward in getting people that are currently unhoused housed. We will help those that are the most needy, as we should. I think we owe that to our fellow human beings. But in the final analysis, if we really want as many people as possible to be self-reliant, then they have to have the jobs that make them self-reliant, and that's a family wage job.
I'd like to tell you how we're doing that. One thing we started about 3 years ago when I became the chair is the hospital authority. A hospital authority, if you think about it, all it is the county providing a mechanism for people to get money. So Willamette View was our first project. Willamette View is a senior center. That's not a hospital, but that's where you get, that's the process you follow. And so they came to us and they asked us to facilitate using our bonding capacity, which we're AAA rated, which, by the way, happened in the last 3 years. And so they came to us and they got about $125 million to do that project, creating jobs, lots of them. And the multiplier, I'm checking on it, but about 1.5. So that's a lot of money. We then, next after that, we did the one in West Lynn, which is, now I'm just going to go right out of my head.
Mary Woods?
Mary's Woods,
yep.
Which now we're up to over 200 million in investments, and we're doing another one now that we're looking at, which will get us into over 300 million in investments. That's how those jobs are created. Those are union wage jobs. Yep. They're professional jobs, and they represent just hundreds of millions in new investment. The other thing that Ken will tell you, if you, when you have regional partners and you don't like what they do and you slap them in the face and then you go, hey, we could use some help, and you give us a grant, how many grants do you think you get?
Probably not too many.
No, probably zero.
Right.
And for a while there, we weren't getting any. Now we're getting almost every grant we asked for.
Well, it was interesting. As part of my research here, I realized that the proof's in the pudding. You were able to receive at least what was it, 5 out of the 6 project county requested money from Metro. Is that just indicative of the new philosophy here?
Well, it is. I mean, this whole job is about building relationships. It really is. With your constituents, with the people you work with those regional partners, it's all about relationships. Like you say, you slap them in the face and you ask them for something, what do they tell you? Thanks, but no thanks.
Well, and you know, we could have a 30-minute discussion on applying that same philosophy to national politics, but when it comes to the county's work, it sounds like it's been real beneficial. I'm just looking here at some of the projects that they funded, that Metro is collaborating with you on. Your Clackamas industrial area, Oregon Bike and Ped. There's the planning and engineering for the Gladstone Trolley Trail Bridge. I mean, basics. These aren't glamorous projects, obviously, but they're the underpinnings of the county, though. They're basics.
Well, the other thing is that we're resolving issues that have been going on for years. The urban-rural reserves. I think it's been 11, 12 years. We resolved that recently, and Ken can tell you how. And then the library thing with Gladstone, we resolved that. The Stafford agreement, we resolved that. I mean, there's all these things that you resolve by doing things, reaching out and doing it. And he's everywhere. So he's just all over the county. So he'll tell you, tell him how we resolved the Stafford issue.
Okay.
That's a good issue, yeah.
Well, and I want to give a lot of credit to, I mean, again, relationships and working with and listening to others is how these things happen. When Jim came on as chair and I came on as a new commissioner, we got a call, or actually a memo from Tom Hughes, who was the president of Metro at the time. And he said that he would consider a memorandum of agreement between the county and Metro to resolve the Stafford Reserves issue. Seemed like a good idea to me. I called a previous county commissioner, Charlotte Lehan, who currently serves on the city council in Wilsonville, who knows land use stuff pretty well. I said, so let me bend your ear and pick your brain, kind of both here, and how do we do that? And out of that conversation came 8 principles that she felt would be what it would take to resolve the issue in Stafford. So we had a conversation with the community, told them what Metro needed and why, and how these 8 principles would meet most of their desires to maintain the quality of life that they enjoy in their community, which was part of their vision plan. Incidental to that, the 3 cities that are nearby, West Lynn, Lake Oswego, and Tualatin, showed some interest in participating in the process. So there was a city commissioner, Jeff Goodman, who had been serving as a city commissioner for some time. I felt a little presumptuous of me, being the new kid on the block at the time, to push this with the city. So he took that by the reins, and he got the 3 cities in line with what the goals were here. Final analysis, because of all of the cooperation with 3 cities, Metro, and the county, 31 elected officials all signed on in agreement and resolved the issue. We met the legitimate needs of Metro, the concerns of the cities, and the concern of the community. And we did that because we built relationships with all of the partners and gave everybody their say and gave value to everybody's position. And what we didn't do was say, I'm right and you're wrong. Because as soon as you go down that road, nothing gets done.
And if I remember correctly, nothing really did get done for almost a decade in that area, right?
Yep. Basically spent hundreds of thousands of the taxpayers' dollars on lawyers instead of politicians who are elected to do this, sitting down and talking to each other. One of my personal pet peeves is when you go to court before you've talked to your partner across the table. That's just a way to hide from doing your job. And I don't approve of that, quite frankly. So,
well, you know, another example of collaboration was the work out there in Estacada with the timber, and part of the cross-laminated timber, CLT.
Oh, that, yeah. I thought you were
And-
talking about the other thing.
Well, there was a couple of issues going on, if I remember correctly from what I read. There was the industrial park and the negotiations to accommodate the company,
Yes.
the cross-lamination company that would be coming in.
Yeah.
And so that was one challenge, and once again, from what I read, through negotiation, that got worked out.
I got to tell you that the guy to thank the most is this guy I'm sitting right next to, and the mayor, Sean Drinkwine,
Yes.
Of
in
Estacada.
Estacada. These two guys worked really hard and got those people to sign the dotted line, along with the help of the state. But Ken really, you know, his middle name is cross-laminated timber, CLT, and
Some truth to that.
and so, you know, this will stimulate maybe an opportunity to get another processor up here, and
We have two people right now sniffing around in the same area that are in the related industry that may be locating some facilities up there also already. This will be synergistic.
And if I remember correctly from what I read, the company that is moving into this Estacada, that will be manufacturing this cross-laminated timber and other product, related product, it made a commitment to hire, to create over 25 jobs
To start, yes.
to start in their community by a certain date as a goal. And leading towards that whole idea of how do we create fair living wage jobs in this county?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, I mean, did you go into that with that expectation? I mean, was that the ultimate goal here, was
that's
to be
all
able to
he
get the
thinks about
jobs?
me.
Well, it's an interesting, that particular product is interesting because it rings several bells. It's jobs, there's no question about it, and it takes people off the roads, and they don't have to drive into Portland for their job. They'll have their job right there in their community if they so choose to live in Estacada. But cross-laminated timber sequesters carbon, massive amounts of carbon. And if you do the harvesting correctly, and I emphasize that is critically important, if you do the harvesting correctly and the replanting and the managing the forest properly, you have a material that is virtually available in perpetuity. So that is a crucial part, and doing it correctly rings the bell, if you will, of the environmental community, because they have always been concerned about the timber industry being too predatory. Mm-hmm. So being able to demonstrate that we do it the right way on our county 3,000 acres of land has been very helpful. So it accomplishes that goal. So you're looking at economic development, you're looking at environmental sustainability and carbon sequestration, as well as keeping people off the roads and close to home for their jobs.
You know, and one other thing that struck me, and it's been a personal interest of mine, is the role of the community, of Clackamas Community College, with this opportunity.
Yes.
Share with me about your discussions with them.
Well, they will be working on training the people that will be working in the facility on CNC machines, because much of this work is very clean work, and it's done with computerized machines. So that is part of what's going to be happening. We've already asked the Carpenters Union folks to meet with Souder Timber, facilitated that introduction along with the college. So that coordination will occur, mm-hmm. Which is, you know, a better education for the people that will be working in these facilities. Tied into that, and my goal is to make sure that we have sufficient high-speed internet for our rural areas, for a number of reasons. But one of those reasons is that the documents that are needed for running those CNC machines, if a producer of the documents in Germany for a project can send them by high-speed internet straight to that factory, they can produce the product there right from those prints that came over the internet, and they don't have to be flown in or driven down the road or anything else.
Yeah, the county, and this again is Ken, but I'm going to say a little bit about it. High-speed internet, you know that we have lots of communities that don't have high-speed internet. And our goal with the ERA money that we got during the downturn, we started laying cable. It's dark fiber, so it's not lit. So somebody else has to light that. But we're looking at, hopefully in this month or next month.
Should have a business plan.
We're going to have we're going to create our own ISP, and we're going to light that up and provide high-speed internet for a lot less money. For example, the best example is the Colton School. The provider said that we will provide you high-speed internet in all your classrooms for $10,000 a month. So we found out, they asked us, and we can do the same thing for $258.
Well, it's internet access for $255 a month, but we don't do the ISP part. That's the next step going forward.
Yeah, and so we want to create a new utility, really, for the county, and that would be
I was just going to say, this sounds like a public utility district type of a deal.
Well, like Ken said, this is exactly right. If we can supply high-speed internet to government camp or anywhere around the county, people may not have to get on the road and go to work, which is traffic is a big problem. Mm-hmm. But if they can work from home with high-speed internet at a reasonable rate, why not?
Absolutely. You know, I know that's been a discussion in like, for instance, Multnomah County, this whole idea of having some sort of a backbone that is managed by the county and by partners, municipality partners and such.
And Ken's really been the lead on this. I mean, that initiative and cross-laminated timber, by far, Ken has really taken those on.
I did want to add one thing in this, and because I wouldn't be surprised if the companies that provide internet in our area are listening to this conversation. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. But what we have put on the table very clearly, repeatedly, is that if we can partner with them and they will provide what it is we're asking to have provided, which essentially is about around 1 gig service in around the $100 range. Somewhat similar to the model in Sandy, which is what I think is a wonderful model, frankly. Then we're not looking to take their business away from them or take anybody's job away from them. We will partner with anybody who will partner with us to accomplish the goal. And the goal is high-speed internet for everybody. But if they don't want to do it, my position is we should do it. Well, I'm not just going to sit back and wait until somebody decides, well, okay, maybe we'll do it. No, either we work together, we get it done, or we'll do it.
Right. And what am and let me just to clarify then, when you say that the dark cable, you're basically saying that you're laying the cable, but there's no service being activated through it. So that ISP is the service, the actual service that it would be going through those cables that have been laid.
Yeah. I think you're right, and I'm going to phrase it that way for a reason, because I'm not a techie. Okay, I just have the vision, and the vision is that everybody's home and business ought to have that high-speed internet. However we get there, I'm good for.
You know, I was going to save this question for closer to the end, but you brought it up here, and I want to address it to both of you. The vision of your vision of where the county will be through what you're doing now. Where will it be in 20 years? What is your vision for that? Where do you see the county?
We'll start with, I think we should.
That's a tough one. You know, we have a lot of great assets in Clackamas County that we're really underutilizing. One thing is if you look out the window and you see that big mountain up there, and you know, that is so underutilized. There's a great opportunity to take advantage of that asset with a ski resort, a tram. There's a land exchange occurring right now that God willing, will be done maybe this year. Then you'll see some growth up in Government Camp. Timberline Lodge recently bought a part of Government Camp down below, so that there's an opportunity to run a tram up. I mean, if you go to Switzerland, there are communities all over that just thrive. Well, there's that in the United States too. So we've got to take advantage of the assets we have. The other one is we have the Oregon City, the Falls Project, the Blue Heron site, in partnership with the tribes, the Grand Ron tribe. I always struggle with that. To do something really great, something that could attract businesses and people from around the nation. Great opportunity, and I think that'll happen. The mountain, better transit opportunities, whether that's bus, light rail, whatever. The transformation of places, downtowns, which have now become much more the core of the community, like Milwaukee's downtown, or Oregon City, which has really changed and much better. We also have Estacada, which is growing rapidly, but the problem there is that that's way out there, and where do those people go to work? They got to drive this way. We got to figure out some way to get them there or keep them at home so they can work at home, and high-speed internet would do that. So there's a lot of potential. And Clackamas County, I'd say is we'll get there. We'll get there in the next few years rapidly. But the other thing I want to say is, people are often afraid of change. Change is going to happen. We can either plan for it or it'll be done to us. So let's take advantage of the change that's coming and plan for it. Do what is right for the community and what the community would feel was the right thing to do.
I'd like to add a little to that if I can.
No, you can't. Having
vital, we have 15 to 16 cities right now, and having those downtowns being vital, job-producing places, but also places that people want to go for recreation, entertainment, and dining, and those kinds of things, I think is important. But there's another aspect of Clackamas County that I don't want us to lose in this whole process, and I think it's a critically important part of what makes us what we are in this region, and that is that 53% of our land is forest. And it is where people like to go hiking and get away from the stresses of the world, where they want to go fishing, where they want to go hunting. That provides the fresh air and the clean water, quite frankly, that we enjoy here in Clackamas County. We need to make sure that we continue to preserve that and that opportunity for all of our residents, not just the ones in Clackamas County, by the way, but also in Washington County and Multnomah County, who have a tendency to think it's their mountain, but it actually is our mountain. But I want people to be able to go out there and really enjoy that 53% of forest that we have. We have a number of parks. I want people to know that those parks are going to still be there, and they're going to be able to go there with their children and have a good day at the park or a weekend at the park camping. We have more small farms in Clackamas County than any other county in the state. I want to make sure we still have those small farms that are producing up to 200 to 240 different products, including the foods that we eat. So that the food that comes to the farmers market in Oregon City, in Milwaukee, in Happy Valley, or even in Portland, is coming from Clackamas County small farms.
That's right.
The 46 wineries in Clackamas County are places that people can go on a weekend on a drive and taste wine and enjoy the products of Clackamas County. So what I don't want to see is just sprawl over all of that. We need to protect that, because that's what makes us unique in this region. And if you've destroyed that, you haven't done any good for Clackamas County. You've destroyed it. So fundamentally, underlying all that we're trying to do is making sure that the environment that we live in, both the economic environment, the transportation environment, and the healthy environment, remains like it is today.
One just additional thing is that close to 70% of our residents leave the county to go to work.
I'd like to keep them here.
I'd like to change that. You know, one thing like we're doing in Estacada is providing jobs where the people are. It makes a lot more sense to try to attract businesses where the people are, so they don't have to go on the roads and drive somewhere else. You know, and that's what we're going to try to do to protect our environment, to protect our farms and forests, and the communities that we were born and raised in.
So really, we'll give people a choice. If you want to stay home and work from home on a computer doing work that can be done internationally, you'll be able to do that. If you want to drive to work, you could do that too. Nobody's saying that you can't do that. And if you want to take a bus or if you want to take the light rail, those different opportunities will be available to people. But we do that in a way that continues to protect our environment and the quality of life that we enjoy in Clackamas County.
Well, and I imagine there's been always a discussion about the rural-urban divide, and it seems like Clackamas is in the heart of that kind of a discussion. But you seem to be trying to make that bridge. Is that a correct assessment?
Definitely. You know, it's a challenge that everybody, you know, across the country is dealing with, but you know, it's just like when Estacada, you know, this idea, but also when the Job Corps site was closing down, the federal government was closing it down, we got involved. We worked with Estacada and the federal government, and we kept that place open. And so, yeah, we have a thing called the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, which is C4, which is all the cities, the CPOs, the hamlets and village, all meet. And I'm the vice chair of it, or co-chair of it, and we talk about joint issues with transportation, with housing, jobs, and all those things, and we work through those things together. And that's how we really bridge that gap. You know, the other thing, that Metro bond money for housing, well, that opens up lots of opportunities to spend that money we had spent in the urban area out in the rural areas, because their biggest issue is workforce housing. And, you know, government camp or Estacada or anywhere is they need workforce housing. We can do that. We can build affordable housing, workforce housing in partnerships with the cities. I don't think we have as big an issue in Clackamas County as a lot of people do because of C4 and Ken being everywhere.
Well, you know, one of the conversations I have with people in the rural areas versus the urban areas and vice versa, I'll phrase it this way. If you're growing a food crop, in particular a food crop, okay, in the rural area, if you sell it in your rural area, you're not going to make a living, quite frankly. You don't have a big enough market. But if you have decent roads that you can take what you produced out there to the farmers markets here in town, you can make top dollar for your product. Now, if you live here in the city, you're not growing your own food, but you do want to eat. Most of us do. Okay, where do you want that food to come from? From 20 miles away or 1,000 miles away? I'd rather have it come from 20 miles away, grown by our own local farmers, and that money stays within our, not only does the money stay within our community, but so does the food. And you know what you're getting from your own local farmers. And there's more of a synergistic relationship there. The people in the city need food. The people in the country need markets for the food that they produce. So really, they have something in common. And just because one likes jazz and the other one likes country western music, who cares? You know, let's look at what you have in common and figure out how you work together.
I would have to agree. And I imagine the internet, I'm really encouraged to hear the emphasis on establishing an internet backbone in Clackamas County, because I really feel strongly that the only way that you are, one of those bridges between those divides is that form of communication. Everybody having that equal access. It's just like it would be for power, or it would be for access to transit. It's got to be on an equal basis for all for it to actually serve its full purpose, it seems.
Well, that kind of infrastructure, government's demonstrated time and time again that it has a role to play. And a perfect example are the railroads. Railroads didn't come across this country just because of business. They also came across this country because government provided the right-of-way and gave them a mile-wide right-of-way all the way across the country. That's just one example. In the 1930s, when you wanted to electrify the rural parts of this country and bring telephones to the rural parts of this country, it was the rural electrification and other alphabet soup programs that made that happen. So there is a role for government to play in these things. That doesn't mean the government has to dominate it. Doesn't mean that the government is the only solution. It is not. But it oftentimes is part of the solution. And the more we can partner with the community and with the business community to work these things out, the better off we all will be.
Well, my appreciation for the county emphasizing the collaboration, not just with the residents of the Clackamas County, but the other stakeholders within the county, the businesses, et cetera. I'm feeling much more confident now after talking to you, gentlemen, as far as the shared focus of all of those stakeholders. Once again, it's the communication, it's the collaboration, it's the idea that we're all on the same page. Yep. As far as where we're going in the future, and so
yeah, I'm a businessman, and when people talk about supportive housing or affordable housing, all those things, we do them not only because we should, but there's a business reason why we should. There's a reason why we invest in these things, because it saves money. We're going to have to pay for it anyway, but why not do it the most moral way, I guess, and that is to figure out how to get people out the streets and into housing where they can prosper. The most important thing about a homeless person is that they got a place to stay, shower, and store things. That's the difference between living on the street and getting a job. And we should house everybody. And whether they have addiction problems or whatever, we can work at fixing those. We're not going to solve all those problems. We could work at fixing those and changing their lives and reducing the cost of government.
Wow. What a concept. Investing to get back. We've got about 1 minute left. Ken, I know that I'm going to give you the last word here, sir.
Well, I'll just say thank you for having us here. I hope that people have heard what we've had to say and take it to heart. And if they have questions, obviously they can contact us. We're more than happy to go out to the communities. I do that all the time, and I know Commissioner Bernard does too, and talk to people directly. But I think if we all work together as much as possible and don't go down the rabbit hole of I'm right and you're wrong, we can get a lot accomplished.
Well, it's kind of ironic. With the current political environment the way it is, there's a lot of dissension and a lot of polarization. But after our conversation today, I'd like to think that some of that has been mitigated. Some of that is improving. And that Clackamas County can be one of those little havens where actually things get done. And that would be nice.
We'd like to seek the same thing.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for being on the show with me. County Commissioner Ken Humbertson, Clackamas County Commissioner Ken Humbertson, Clackamas County Chair Jim Bernard. They are both up for re-election this year, and so if you'd like to learn more about the role that they play in Clackamas County, give them a call. I get the feeling that they would love to talk to you because they have been fantastic guests with me tonight. So I'm appreciative of that. You have been watching Progressive Radio on TV. My name is Moses Ross. We are on the first Tuesday of every month here in beautiful Oregon City at the Willamette Falls Media Center. you too can have your own TV show if you reach out to Willamette Falls Media Center, and you can participate in their training, and you can utilize their equipment, and you too can have a show. So I would like to thank everybody for participating with us tonight. Just as a forecast for what's coming up in the future, boy, let me tell you, with the election season the way it is right now, I'm going to be devoting at least 1 or 2 shows to just a little bit of rambling and ranting about the presidential campaigns. But as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, I do want to bring in some more elected officials so that we can learn firsthand the role that government plays in our lives and how we can improve it. So thank you very much.
If I had a hammer, I'd a hammer in the morning, I'd a hammer in the evening, over this
Studio's clear.
I'd a hammer out of danger, I'd a hammer out of warning, I'd a hammer out of love between my brothers.